Welcome to True Echo, where powerful stories echo louder than words. What would you do if a 9-year-old girl holding a baby walked up to you and whispered, "I'll pay you back when I grow up"? Would you walk away, or change her life forever? This story will break your heart, then put it back together in the most unexpected way. The bell above the door gave a tired jingle as it swung open, letting in a burst of cold air that mixed with the sour tang of bleach and day-old bread. The food depot on Dekar Street was a last resort, the kind of place where lights flickered like dying stars and the tiles stuck slightly to the soles of your shoes. But for 9-year-old Kendra Wallace, it might as well have been the gates of hope. She held her baby brother tight, Noah's thin blanket barely shielding him from the wind that clung to them as they stepped inside. Her breath fogged in the air as she paused just past the entrance. Every step she took echoed a quiet defiance, squeaking on the floor like it didn't belong. She tightened her grip around Noah, whose tiny whimper was a soft, pained sound, half hunger, half exhaustion. His head, too light for comfort, pressed against her bony shoulder, and his little fist twitched under the blanket. She swallowed and looked at her hand, 3 coins, 2 nickels and a dime. 15 cents. Not even close to the $3.79 for a gallon of milk. Still she walked. Past the shelves of expired cereal and bruised apples. Past the eyes that followed her not out of concern but suspicion. The milk fridge glowed faintly at the end of the aisle like a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. And then she saw him. He didn't belong here. Not in this store, not in this neighborhood. Tall, sharply dressed in a tailored black coat and polished leather gloves, the man leaned on a shopping cart like he had nowhere to be but everywhere important. His features were clean, his skin the color of warm bronze, and the dark leather bag slung across his chest looked more expensive than everything in Kendra's apartment combined. Her steps faltered. Her voice almost died in her throat. But then Noah whimpered again and she remembered Mama's tears at the kitchen table. She remembered the way her belly twisted when the bottle was empty. She remembered the way Mama tried to smile and said, "Just try, baby. Maybe someone will help." So Kendra stepped forward. "Sir," she said barely louder than a breath. I don't have enough for milk. But I promise I'll pay you back, when I grow up." He looked up, blinking like he wasn't sure he'd heard her right. "I said," her voice cracked but she steadied it, "I'll pay you back when I grow up." Around them the store seemed to hush. An older woman near the cheese display turned slightly. A young man paused with a pack of instant noodles halfway to his cart. The world froze. The man's eyes swept from her shoes, worn, mismatched laces, to the baby in her arms, who let out a pitiful cough that made even the fluorescent light seem to dim. "What's your name?" he asked finally, kneeling so their eyes were level. "Kendra," she whispered. "And this is Noah. He's my brother." "Where's your mom?" "She's home. She's tired. She said we need milk." The man didn't say anything. His brows drew together, not in pity but pain. He stood, stepped toward the fridge and grabbed a gallon of milk. Then without a word he started filling his cart. Formula, diapers, cans, a box of cereal, a loaf of bread, a jar of baby food. His hands moved like he'd done this before. Like it wasn't charity. Like it was justice. Kendra's eyes widened. Her knees trembled. "Come on," he said. "You're coming with me. We're going to talk about how to make sure you and Noah never have to go through this again." She didn't know it yet, but that moment was going to change her life forever. Kendra didn't move right away. The weight of Noah in her arms was nothing compared to the confusion and fear swirling in her chest. People didn't just offer help. Not like this. Especially not people like him. He looked like he belonged on magazine covers, not in the moldy aisle of the food depot handing out second chances. She hesitated as the man continued loading his cart with quiet urgency. He wasn't asking questions anymore. He wasn't waiting for permission. But Kendra's instincts were tangled, part awe, part suspicion. She'd seen enough adults come and go from her life with empty promises. How was this any different? "Sir?" she asked almost inaudibly. The man looked over his shoulder. His face had softened but his voice was firm. "My name is Marcus. Marcus Ellison. And no, I'm not mad at you." She blinked, her eyes wide. "I'm mad that a kid like you has to ask a stranger for milk. I'm mad that you feel like the world owes you nothing and demands everything. But at you? Never." That made something inside her shift. By the time they reached the register, people were whispering, glancing, shifting their carts to get a better look. Marcus didn't flinch. He stacked the groceries with careful precision, like every item mattered. Kendra stood behind him, silent, clutching Noah as if letting go would make the whole thing disappear. The cashier, An older woman with reading glasses and a tired smile scanned the items quickly, her eyes bouncing between Marcus and the little girl with trembling arms. The total was over $100. Kendra panicked. Please, that's too much. I just needed milk. I can't. Marcus turned to her gently but firmly. Kendra, this isn't charity. This is what it means to care. Let me do this. The cashier bagged everything in silence, except for the occasional beep of the scanner and the soft rustle of plastic. Marcus pulled out a sleek black card. The woman's hand paused slightly, but she swiped it without comment. Then came the hard part. Do you have a way to carry all this home? Marcus asked, lifting 2 full bags in one hand. Kendra looked down at her arms. No, she admitted. I usually just carry the milk. Marcus nodded slowly. All right. I'll walk you. Her eyes widened. I can't. My mama, she doesn't like strangers. He crouched again so they were eye level. Kendra, I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just want to help. If she doesn't want me there, I'll leave. But I'm not letting you walk home in the cold with a baby and no gloves, carrying groceries that weigh more than you do. She searched his eyes. They weren't cold. They weren't calculating. And when she nodded slightly, it wasn't just agreement, it was trust, timid and fragile. Outside, the wind bit sharper than before. The streetlights flickered above cracked sidewalks. Marcus carried the bags effortlessly, his coat drawn tight against the chill. Kendra walked beside him in short, quick steps, Noah's breath soft against her neck. So, Marcus said after a block or two, where do you live? Down near the laundromat, Kendra said. Couple more blocks. Your mom's name is Denise, right? She nodded. She used to work at a diner. They cut her hours then let her go. We've been trying to... Marcus felt a pressure rising in his chest. You shouldn't be the one trying, Kendra. You're a child. Somebody's got to, she replied softly. That stopped him. He looked down at her and she looked away, ashamed for saying something she thought she wasn't supposed to. But Marcus understood. Too well. He thought of his own mother, how she used to cry behind closed doors, thinking he couldn't hear. How he'd once walked 5 miles in the rain to find someone, anyone, to lend them $5 for bread and bus fare. He remembered the looks he got, the silence, the closed doors. And that promise he'd made. If I ever make it out, I'll never walk past a hungry kid without doing something. They turned the corner onto a street lined with worn buildings and rusting balconies. A busted tricycle sat on its side near the stairs. Kendra pointed up. That's us. 3rd floor. He followed her up the narrow steps. She stopped at a dented door, its numbers faded to near nothing. Please don't say anything to Mama to make her feel worse, she whispered. I won't, Marcus said, his voice low. I just want to help. She knocked. There was a long pause. Then the door creaked open. A woman stood there, thin and pale with heavy bags under her eyes. Her sweatshirt hung off one shoulder, and her hair was pulled back hastily. She blinked at the sight of her daughter, and the man beside her. Kendra? What is this? Kendra rushed to explain. Mama. I asked him for milk. Denise's expression crumbled, first into disbelief, then anger, then shame. You did what? Kendra, you can't go around talking to strangers. Marcus raised a hand, calm and unthreatening. Ma'am, I get it. But your daughter didn't ask for a handout. She asked for a loan. For her baby brother. Denise's mouth trembled. Her eyes watered. Marcus added gently, you have nothing to apologize for. The silence that followed was thick with disbelief. Finally, Denise stepped back, her voice a whisper. Come in. The apartment was small, barely heated. Every corner doubled as something else. Couch as bed, table as desk, kitchen as everything. Kendra placed Noah in a worn playpen. He let out a soft coo, trying to reach for a toy that wasn't there. Marcus set the groceries on the counter. Denise, he said now that he had a name for her. You don't owe me anything. But tell me, what's really going on? Her defenses cracked, her story tumbling out in fragments. Lost job, unpaid bills, no daycare, too proud to beg but too desperate not to try. Marcus listened, jaw tight, heart pounding. And then he said something that made her freeze. I can help you. Not just for tonight. For good. She blinked. What do you mean? I own property. One of my diners in Dallas needs a manager. I can get you a fresh start. I'll cover the rent, help with daycare. I'll fly you and the kids out tomorrow. Tears slipped down Denise's cheeks. Why? She whispered. Because someone should have done it for my mom, and no one did. Denise opened her mouth, but before she could respond, 3 loud knocks exploded against the door. Marcus's head snapped toward it. Who's that? Denise's eyes widened with fear. The landlord. Another knock. Then a gruff voice. Denise? Rent's late, again. You got it or not? Marcus stood up, his frame filling the doorway. Stay here, he said, walking to the door. Denise reached for him. Please don't. Too late. Marcus opened the door. A heavy-set man in a faded cap sneered. Who are you? Marcus didn't flinch. The man making sure she pays you, tomorrow? The landlord squinted. And who the hell are you supposed to be? Marcus's eyes didn't waver. Someone who doesn't take no for an answer. The landlord backed down. She's got until Friday. No, Marcus said. She gets till tomorrow. That's all she needs. The man looked ready to argue, then thought better of it and left. Marcus closed the door quietly. Denise stared at him, stunned. What did you just do? I bought you 24 hours. Now pack your things, he said. You're flying to Texas tomorrow. She stood frozen, staring between him and Kendra. Finally she whispered, yes. Morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains like a whisper of hope no one dared trust just yet. For the first time in weeks, the apartment didn't feel like a tomb. It buzzed with movement, nervous energy, and the sounds of rushed preparation. Denise moved like a woman waking from a bad dream she hadn't realized she was trapped in. She folded clothes with trembling hands, checking and rechecking the old duffel bag Marcus had given her. Kendra sat on the couch, gently bouncing Noah on her lap as he cooed and gurgled, unaware of how much had changed in just a single night. Marcus stood by the door with his phone to his ear, his voice low and precise. Yes. Arrival at Love Field. Get the keys ready. She'll need everything stocked, fridge, formula, basic groceries. And call Ms. Vega at the diner. Tell her we found our new hire. He ended the call and looked over at Denise. Car will be here in an hour. She blinked. An hour? Just like that? Marcus nodded. Just like that. You already booked the flight? Yes. My assistant will meet you at the airport and take you straight to the apartment I rented. It's furnished. First month's rent is covered. Utilities are on. There's a daycare down the block for Noah. You start work Monday. Denise sat down hard on the arm of the couch, her eyes wide and unfocused. I don't even know how to thank you. Marcus gave her a look that was gentle but firm. You don't owe me thanks. You owe yourself a fresh start. Take it. Kendra looked up from the couch. Mr. Ellison, she said, her voice small but steady. Marcus crouched so they were eye to eye. Yeah. I meant it when I said I'd pay you back. One day. I really will. His throat tightened. He saw himself in her so clearly it hurt, barefoot in a freezing apartment, holding his baby sister and making promises to himself no one thought he'd keep. He smiled. Kendra, the best way you can pay me back is to never forget what you did last night. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's courage. She nodded slowly, soaking in every word like they were seeds she planned to grow. Then, without warning, she threw her arms around him, nearly crushing Noah between them. Marcus froze, then hugged her back, one gloved hand on her narrow back, the other gently supporting the baby. Denise wiped her eyes. She doesn't hug many people. Neither do I, Marcus murmured. The car horn honked below. It was time. Marcus carried the bags down, his breath visible in the cold air. He held the door open as Kendra and Denise climbed in. Kendra looked out the window at him as the car pulled away. Her eyes weren't scared anymore. They were wide with something new, belief. Bye, Mr. Ellison, she called softly. He nodded. Go write the story you deserve. The car disappeared into the gray city streets. Marcus stood there for a long time, hands in his pockets, watching until the taillights vanished. He had no idea if he'd ever see them again. But deep down something told him he would. Because this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. 3 weeks passed. Marcus sat in his Dallas office, a sleek corner suite with panoramic glass that overlooked the skyline. His firm, Allison Strategies, specialized in turning underperforming tech startups into multimillion-dollar players. His calendar was usually packed with investor calls and client meetings, but for the first time in years he found himself checking his email less and his phone more, waiting for an update that wasn't business-related. Then one afternoon his assistant buzzed in. Mr. Ellison, you have a visitor in the lobby. I'm not expecting anyone, he said, frowning. She says she works at the diner. Name's Denise Wallace. He stood so fast his chair rolled back into the wall. Send her up. Seconds later, Denise stepped into the office looking like a woman reborn. Her hair was freshly braided, her blouse crisp, her smile brighter than he'd ever seen it. In her arms, Noah bounced happily, bigger and healthier already. Kendra followed behind, holding a notebook and beaming like she had just aced a spelling bee. "I hope it's okay," Denise said. "We were nearby and I wanted to say thank you. In person." Marcus stepped forward. "You look good." "I feel good," she said, a little breathless. "I'm working. We're safe. Noah sleeps through the night. Kendra's back in school, she even got moved up a grade." "Really?" Marcus turned to Kendra. "That true?" She nodded proudly. "Miss Hart says I write like a grown-up." Marcus chuckled. "Sounds like Miss Hart is smart." Kendra pulled something from her notebook, a folded piece of paper. She handed it to him shyly. "What's this?" "A promise," she said. He opened it. In pencil, written in neat block letters, were the words, "I owe you 1 gallon of milk. Payment due when I grow up. Signed, Kendra Wallace." Marcus stared at the note for a long time. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Because sometimes you don't need a contract to seal a bond. Sometimes all it takes is a promise. 3 months later, spring arrived in Dallas with unexpected warmth, and with it, a transformation few could have predicted. The once quiet Denise Wallace now moved with a steadiness that came from sleeping without fear of eviction. Her morning started before sunrise, prepping for the breakfast rush at Marcus's Diner, a small but bustling joint near the business district. She wasn't just a cook. She was a cornerstone. Word traveled fast about Miss Denise, the woman with the sweetest smile and the fastest spatula in the city. Customers lined up not just for the pancakes but for the comfort she carried in her voice. Regulars left bigger tips than the meals cost. Some came back just to hear her call them honey, with that soft New Orleans lilt. Marcus visited every Friday morning, usually alone, sitting quietly at the corner booth with a black coffee and his laptop. He'd glance over the counter occasionally and see Kendra behind the scenes, sometimes scribbling in a notebook, sometimes helping fold napkins, sometimes rocking Noah to sleep in a back booth. Kendra had found herself a spot at a new school, one with teachers who saw more than her zip code. She joined the writing club, entered the citywide essay competition, and even stood on stage to recite a piece she'd written about heroes. When she said, "A hero is someone who doesn't wear a cape, but carries your groceries when your arms are full," Marcus looked away to blink fast. But not everything stayed simple. Because with success comes noise. One Thursday afternoon, Marcus's phone buzzed during a meeting with a board member. He silenced it the first time. And the second. But on the third buzz he saw the name on the screen. Amanda Vega, his legal advisor. He stepped out. "What's wrong?" Amanda's voice was tight. "We have a problem." "Go on." "Someone's poking around the diner." Local news. Asking why a millionaire tech exec hired a woman off the street and moved her into corporate housing. They're implying something else. Marcus didn't speak. His jaw clenched. "There's more," Amanda continued. "They're digging into Kendra's story. The grocery store moment. It's circulating online. The phrase, 'I'll pay you back when I grow up,' is going viral. That was never supposed to go public. Well, it is now. Within hours, the story had exploded on social media. A blurry phone video from the Food Depot had surfaced. Someone had recorded Marcus and Kendra's first encounter without their knowledge. It showed her whispering to him, holding Noah, and him crouching down to meet her eyes. The caption read, "She promised to pay him back when she grew up. He bought her groceries and gave her a new life." It spread like wildfire. The video racked up millions of views in days. Major outlets started running headlines. Tech CEO rescues struggling family after grocery store encounter. From 15 cents to a future, a 9-year-old's promise goes viral. Cinderella in sneakers. Who is Kendra Wallace? Some stories were beautiful. Others were not. Marcus sat in his office that weekend staring at a gossip blog headline on his screen. CEO Marcus Ellison's secret life. Savior or sinner? And the subheader stung. Why is a single millionaire man moving women into company-owned apartments? Is there more than charity at play? He closed the laptop. Back at the apartment, Denise stared at the TV in disbelief. Her hands shook as she turned off the screen. "They're saying things, Kendra," she whispered. "Bad things." Kendra frowned, protective as ever. "But it's not true. He helped us." "I know, baby." Denise sighed. "But people don't always want the truth. They want stories that sell." That night, Marcus showed up at their door. He didn't wear his usual calm. Denise opened the door cautiously. "You okay?" No, he said, stepping inside. I need to talk to both of you. He sat on the edge of the couch, removing his gloves slowly. The story's out. The video. The news. They're twisting it. Kendra sat cross-legged on the floor with her notebook, eyes wide. Did I do something wrong? He shook his head. No. You did something brave. And beautiful. But the world doesn't always know how to handle that. Denise rubbed her arms. Are we in trouble? Marcus hesitated. Then he looked at Kendra. There's one way to fix this. One way to tell our version of the story, before someone else does. Kendra tilted her head. How? He pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat. A letter. I booked a segment with a major talk show. National TV. They want to hear from the girl who made a promise, and the man who didn't walk away. Denise stiffened. TV? Marcus, I didn't ask for fame. I know, he said. Neither did I. But if we don't speak, they'll keep telling it their way. He handed the paper to Kendra. You ready to tell them who you really are? She smiled faintly. I already wrote it down. The set was brighter than Kendra expected. Hot lights buzzed from above, and cameras tracked every twitch like they were hunting secrets. The studio audience whispered as she entered, hand in hand with Denise on one side and Marcus on the other. A soft gasp swept the room when people realized that little girl from the viral video was real. She wasn't an actress. She wasn't a prop. She was here. In pink sneakers and a pressed blue dress, her braids tied with matching ribbons. Noah sat backstage with a caretaker provided by the show, contentedly chewing on a rubber toy. The host, a poised woman with a warm smile and sharp heels, introduced the segment with practiced ease. America, today we meet the real faces behind a story that broke the internet. You've seen the video. You've shared the hashtags. But now we bring you the truth, from the girl who asked for milk, and the man who listened. A large screen behind them showed the viral clip. Kendra's small voice, Marcus's quiet crouch, and the words that sparked a national conversation. I don't have enough money, but I'll pay you back when I grow up. The audience fell silent. Then the host turned toward Kendra. Sweetheart, do you remember saying that? Kendra nodded shyly, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, ma'am. What were you thinking that day? Kendra glanced at Marcus, who gave her a small, encouraging nod. She turned back to the camera. I was thinking my baby brother was hungry, and Mama didn't have anything left. I didn't want to steal. I just wanted to borrow. A low murmur of emotion rippled through the audience. The host turned to Marcus. Mr. Ellison, why did you step in? He paused. Because I'd been there. Not just physically, but emotionally. I was that kid once, hungry, cold, watching my mom cry because she couldn't fix everything. I made a promise to myself a long time ago, if I ever made it out, I'd never walk past a child in need without doing something. The audience applauded quietly, the kind that comes from respect, not spectacle. Denise, sitting in between them, swallowed visibly. I didn't even know what she'd done until she came home with this man carrying our groceries. I thought I should be angry, but I was just grateful. Grateful that someone finally saw her. The host smiled gently. And now. Denise exhaled, her voice steady. Now we're safe. I have a job. My baby is healthy. My daughter is writing stories instead of carrying the weight of the world. The host turned to Kendra again. And what do you want to be when you grow up? Kendra smiled. A writer. Or maybe a lawyer. Someone who helps people. And do you still plan to pay Mr. Ellison back? Kendra reached into her small purse and pulled out the same folded note Marcus had been keeping in his coat pocket since the first day they met. She held it up proudly. I already did. The audience burst into applause, standing to their feet. The host stood, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye. Thank you, all three of you, for showing the world what real compassion looks like. And Marcus, before we end, I have to ask, is this the first time you've helped someone like this? Marcus hesitated. The camera zoomed in. And that's when everything shifted. No, he said slowly. But it's the first time I realized I wasn't just helping someone else. I was helping the version of me I left behind. The words hung in the air like thunder. And the audience went still. Because no one expected that twist. Backstage after the show, Denise was wrapping Noah in a soft blanket as producers swarmed around them, handing off business cards and congratulatory messages. Kendra clutched a signed book from the host, smiling bigger than she ever had. Marcus stepped away to take a call. Amanda's voice buzzed through the phone. You crushed it. I didn't do it for PR, he said flatly. I know. But there's something else you need to see. What? You've been nominated for the National Humanity Award. Turns out people were watching. Big people. Marcus didn't respond right away. He stared through the studio window at Kendra giggling with a cameraman, Noah blowing bubbles from his lips. Denise laughing like she forgot what sadness felt like. "Tell them thanks," he finally said. "But I already got my award." Amanda chuckled. "You going soft?" "Maybe," he said. "Maybe that's the point." But neither of them knew that not everyone watching was smiling. Because thousands of miles away someone else had seen the broadcast. And their reaction wasn't joy. It was rage. And within the week, a letter would arrive at Marcus's office that would make everything unravel, fast. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, slid quietly onto Marcus's desk by his assistant, who didn't even glance at the return address. It looked unremarkable, no logo, no fancy seal. Just a plain white envelope with a Dallas postmark. But the moment Marcus slid it open and began to read, the air in the room changed. At first his eyes narrowed. Then his jaw clenched. By the time he reached the end of the page, his hands were shaking. It wasn't a threat. It was worse. A claim. A woman named Renee Wallace was alleging that Marcus Ellison had unlawfully influenced and manipulated a vulnerable family, exploiting the Wallace family's hardship for publicity, personal gain, and ego-driven attention. The letter, signed by her attorney, demanded an immediate cease and desist of all public appearances with Kendra and Denise. It threatened to file for emergency custody of Noah, claiming emotional endangerment due to unstable media exposure. At the bottom of the page was a chilling sentence. "We will be pursuing custody and full guardianship over Noah Wallace as his biological aunt." Marcus sat frozen for a long moment. The paper trembled in his grip. He stood, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and stared out at the city skyline. This was the twist he hadn't seen coming. Denise crumpled to her knees when she read the letter. No, she can't," she whispered, clutching Noah tightly as tears streamed down her face. "She didn't even come to the hospital when he was born. She didn't help when I was broke or when we got evicted back in Shreveport. Now she wants to take him?" Marcus stood silently, his face carved from stone. "She's using the media attention," he said. "Trying to twist your story into something it never was." Kendra sat nearby, eyes wide and terrified. "Are they going to take Noah?" "No one's taking your brother," Marcus said firmly. "Not without a fight." But inside he felt it, the creeping sensation that this wouldn't be easy. Renee Wallace had money. A new job in a neighboring state. A clean record. And now, with the media frenzy spinning wild, she had a narrative the courts might listen to. A wealthy stranger swept in and rescued a child without oversight. It didn't matter that Denise was Noah's mother. In the system, money meant credibility. "We need a lawyer," Marcus said, already dialing. "I can't afford." "You're not paying," he interrupted. "I am." That night, Marcus met with Amanda Vega in his office. The city lights shimmered outside the window as files were laid across the conference table. "Renee Wallace," Amanda said, flipping through a folder. "She disappeared after her sister gave birth. But technically she's blood. She's filing in Shreveport court, not here in Texas. Her lawyer's aggressive. They're aiming to establish Noah as at risk due to overexposure." Marcus leaned forward. "We need to establish the truth." "We need more than that," Amanda said. "We need witnesses." Kendra, who had been sitting quietly in the corner with her notebook, stood and walked to the table. She placed a folded paper next to Amanda. "My teacher said this was the best thing I've ever written," she said. "It's about Mr. Ellison. And Mama. And why I'll never let anyone take Noah." Amanda looked down at the page. She began to read. The courtroom in Shreveport was colder than it should have been. Denise sat stiffly beside Marcus, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, every muscle rigid with fear. Kendra sat behind them with a school counselor from Dallas, dressed in her Sunday dress, her hair carefully braided. Renee Wallace sat on the other side of the room, dressed like she was heading to church on Easter morning. Her lawyer, a smug man with slicked back hair and a $1,000 pen, stood confidently before the judge. They were paraded in front of millions of viewers, he argued. A child with no agency, her baby brother placed in harm's way by a media-hungry millionaire. "We are not attacking Mr. Ellison's character. We are concerned with the well-being of a defenseless child." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Then Amanda stood. And Kendra followed her to the stand. "State your name," the judge asked. "Kendra Wallace." "You're 9? "Almost 10, she said clearly. "And you wrote something you'd like to read today?" She nodded, unfolded her paper and began. When I met Mr. Ellison, I was just trying to get milk. Not for me. For Noah. My baby brother. I wasn't trying to be on TV. I didn't want to be famous. I just didn't want him to cry anymore. Mr. Ellison didn't just help us that day. He gave my mama a job. He gave us a place to live. He told me I was brave even when I didn't feel like it. And people say he wanted attention, but he never asked for cameras. He didn't even know someone filmed us. He just looked at me and saw someone worth helping. So I don't know what grown-ups think is happening, but I know what I felt. And I felt safe. So if you take my brother away from my mama, if you take him away from the people who made us feel safe, it won't just hurt her. It'll hurt me. And I don't think the law should do that. Silence fell. The judge removed his glasses, wiping his eyes without shame. Renee looked away. Her lawyer cleared his throat, trying to redirect, but it was too late. The tide had turned. The ruling came 3 days later. Denise Wallace retained full custody of Noah. Renee Wallace's petition was denied. The court cited the child's stability, emotional well-being, and the extraordinary presence of community support and rehabilitative stability provided by Marcus Ellison and his foundation. When the decision was read aloud, Denise burst into tears. Kendra climbed into her lap, and even Noah, unaware of the courtroom tension, let out a joyful squeal that echoed across the room. Marcus stood to the side, relief flooding through him, but even more than that, pride. Not in what he had done, but in what Kendra had become. Because her words had saved her family. Not money. Not power. Her voice. A child's voice. A promise that grew up too fast, and refused to be broken. The sun hung low over Dallas, casting a golden haze over the skyline. From the window of the small but bright apartment Marcus had arranged months ago, the world looked different. Not because the city had changed, but because Kendra, Denise, and even Noah had. Inside, laughter echoed through the modest home. Denise stirred a pot on the stove, humming a tune she hadn't dared hum in years. Her movements were relaxed now, shoulders no longer pulled tight with stress. She wore her diner uniform still, but something about her posture said she stood taller, even in exhaustion. Noah, now crawling and trying to pull himself upright with furious determination, banged on a plastic xylophone, his face crinkled in delight. He was stronger, chunkier, healthier. Federal loved. Kendra sat at the table, her braided head bent low over a new spiral notebook, her third one this month, scribbling furiously. Her teacher had submitted her essay to a statewide youth writing contest. She was already a finalist. The doorbell rang. She looked up. I'll get it. Marcus stood in the hallway, holding a large envelope in one hand and a wrapped package in the other. Hey, superstar, he said, grinning. Kendra beamed. You missed dinner? That's all right. I brought dessert. He held up the box. Chocolate fudge cake. Straight from LaRue's downtown. Her eyes lit up like sparklers. Mama says that place is for rich folks. Marcus winked. Tonight it's for heroes. He stepped inside, handing the envelope to Denise and the box to Kendra. What's this? Denise asked, eyeing the envelope suspiciously. A surprise. Good kind. She opened it slowly, brows knitting in confusion as she scanned the documents inside. Then she froze. Her hand flew to her mouth. Marcus, this is official, he nodded. You're no longer just a tenant. You're a homeowner. The apartment is yours. No strings. No rent. Just yours. Her knees gave slightly and she sank into the nearest chair. Why would you? Because no one should have to keep wondering if the floor beneath them is going to disappear. Not you. Not Kendra. Not Noah. Denise stared at him, eyes glassy. You changed our whole life. No, he said softly. Kendra did. I just listened. He turned to the girl, now happily scooping cake onto 3 chipped plates. Speaking of, I have one more thing for you. From his coat, he pulled out the original folded paper, the IOU note Kendra had given him that first day. He handed it back to her. She blinked. You're giving it back? He nodded. Debt's paid. But I haven't done anything yet, she said, confused. Oh, but you have. He crouched to her level like he had in the grocery aisle all those months ago. You reminded people what it means to be brave. You spoke up when it mattered. And you proved something grown-ups forget. What's that? That small voices can echo louder than any headline. Kendra's eyes welled with tears. Then she grinned. I'm gonna frame it, she said, clutching the note. And hang it on the wall when I'm famous. Marcus chuckled. You better. I'll need something to brag about when you're on TV again. They laughed together as the scent of cinnamon and chocolate filled the room. For once, Everything was quiet, but not the kind of quiet that comes from fear or absence. It was peace. It was safety. It was home. And far away across the internet, people still shared the video. They still talked about the little girl with 15 cents and a backbone of steel. They still whispered about the man who didn't walk past her. And slowly, bit by bit, others began doing the same. One person helped a child buy shoes. Another offered a single mom a job. A teacher started a promise board in their classroom, filled with sticky notes from students pledging to lift each other up. Because Kendra's story wasn't just a moment. It was a movement. A reminder that sometimes the strongest thing you can say is, "I'll pay you back when I grow up." And the most powerful response? "You don't have to. I believe in you." At True Echo, we bring you stories that remind us of one powerful truth. Kindness, when unexpected, can change the entire course of someone's life. This story isn't just about milk or poverty or struggle. It's about promises kept, hearts opened, and second chances given. As Marcus Ellison said, "The best way to pay me back is by never forgetting what you did when it mattered." So we ask you, who can you help today? It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. If this story moved you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to True Echo for more powerful, inspirational stories. Comment below, what promise did you once make, or wish someone made to you? Share this story with someone who needs a reason to believe again.